All right, we are back. Oh, you got a sneak peek of our guest because we'll just leave her up on the screen. We are excited to be here. As things go in education, that's why we do this live, is that sometimes we get lost. Sometimes we have the wrong start and setup. Sometimes we have the wrong back screen on there because we're just so engaged in our conversation that we just start. We're going to just jump right in. I'm Matthew Joseph, one of the hosts of Stronger Together podcast, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Rob Abraham from Tech Booth 500. We're going to jump right in because Kathy was so excited. She actually got a promo and a preview in the last podcast. One, yeah. So we are going to jump right in. Kathy, welcome to Stronger Together podcast. You found us.
Hello, great to be here.
So for those who don't know who you are, talk a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Sure. I'm a recently retired assistant superintendent of accountability who took a position in my quote retirement with Innive as the senior vice president of client partnerships. So now I was in the school world and now I'm in the ed tech world, which I'm really finding I'm enjoying the transition.
Awesome. So in your role as assistant superintendent, because that's the role that I have now, and how have you seen those skills translate in the work that you're doing now in more of the private sector?
I love it because, again, having lived it for so many years and being in ed tech for so long, I've kind of realized what schools need and what they haven't gotten. And I'm lucky to work for a company that allows us to build a product that really can be customized and suitable for the needs of a district and not necessarily the needs of the company.
So I'm in a similar situation. I was a teacher in New York City for 10 years before moving to the ed tech world, and that's where I've been for many years now. Do you miss it?
I do. I miss the students big time.
Yeah.
I miss the fun that we have because I think people don't realize how hard educators work, but yet how much fun we have. But I don't miss the 2 a.m. calls.
No, I wouldn't.
Something is broken or is something the heat isn't working, that kind of thing. That I don't miss.
No, I wouldn't think so. And so the work that you're doing, you did have a session already passed. It was yesterday. Mm-hmm. Are you ready for the Portrait of a Graduate? What does that work, and how does your company work with that?
Sure. About 2.5 years ago, I sat in a state ed presentation as an assistant superintendent where I was really excited initially because New York State has revamped all of the graduation requirements, and where students were once required to pass a series of Regents exams and different criteria to get a diploma. We're now moving towards in New York more performance-based diploma. Mm-hmm. And I had absolute joy for about 35 seconds as I said, okay, this is the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do for kids. And then I thought, oh my gosh, how on earth are we going to measure this? And my accountability brain started working. So, and I think I had a similar reaction to many educators in New York and across the nation, because this is actually a nationwide initiative. So we, the company, started working on, all right, what does this really mean? And I had a client say the other day, it's kind of taking the theoretical and making it practical. So we're working closely with school districts to identify the different criteria that we're already doing, whether it's coursework or student experiences, and organizing them in a way where we can tell if students are strong at critical thinking, if they're a good global citizen, if they're an effective communicator, because the pillars in themselves are a little abstract, but when you really drill down into it, you can find concrete ways to measure it. And that's what we're trying to do at Innive.
Oh, that's exciting. You know, there's so much emphasis on data and assessment, and whether a student knows what the square root of 49 is, but that's not the only way to measure a student. And, you know, sometimes I hate to say it, but I see it in the classroom. I see how teachers, and not through no fault of their own, through some of the demands put on them, they tend to overlook the individuality and a lot of the things that make the students not only who they are, but who they're going to be. So what you're doing, it's a very important.
Thank you. And I think there's so much, and we all have our strengths, and I don't think diplomas necessarily, in the way that we measure it, doesn't necessarily show that. And we were laughing, the committee that was designing our graphics in the initial run, the first student that came out, again, we were using synthetic data, but it showed that he was an effective communicator, and he was a good global citizen, mm-hmm. but he wasn't strong academically. Right. So then we started talking about, okay, what might be great for this kid? And we all were like salesperson all day long, maybe, newscaster or something along those lines. But again, before where we would have just said not academically really strong. I think this gives us the ability to see not only where students are doing well, but also to look at our school systems and our programs that we're offering to be able to see where there's weaknesses in our own educational programming that students really need.
That's just really impactful and powerful. And I think that's what, when I think of the Portrait of Graduate or that work, it really sets up the futurizing it for that student and the support. Where do you see schools that don't have these fall short of that?
I'm a firm believer in what gets measured gets done. And by New York State making this a requirement and forcing us to drill into it, in my presentation, I talked a lot about this isn't just an accountability problem with how are we going to measure it. This is an instructional problem as well, where we have to make sure if we say we're teaching financial literacy, the instructional folks need to look into their practices and say, is this really financial literacy or is this just teaching them budgeting? Right. So again, making sure that we're looking at our instructional programming to make sure that it does what the code actually says it does.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you found us. We're glad that you had a chance to share with us. But since this is the first time we've had you on the podcast, we can't let you go without asking our last question.
Yeah, so this is a question that we've been asking everyone, and the answer is, while similar, do allow for a lot of individuality. So the name of the podcast is Stronger Together. When you hear the word stronger together, what's the first thing that would come to your mind?
I think we don't do enough of it in education. I think we kind of do what our region does. I know New York State is very much like that. So I think events like this help us to see and working with vendors and companies that are willing to grow and learn and individualize and personalize products. Because again, I've seen now that I'm on the other side, things that the companies learn from other school districts. And I know as an assistant superintendent, I learn things from the company. And I think in ed tech, that doesn't necessarily happen a lot of the times. Educators are kind of forced to go with what the company offers, and it doesn't necessarily go off. So I think by working together exactly like that, we can build products that fit the needs of our students, and each district is different. Each school is different. So making sure that we individualize into the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities of each.
Well, awesome. Well, Kathy, it was great to meet you. Thrilled to have you on, joining the Stronger Together episodes. It's great to see you, meet you, and get to know more of your work. And if you're out there, make sure to connect with Kathy, learn about this important work, and find out how it'll impact your district as well. So, Rob, we're going to continue on. We got some more this morning before lunch, and of course, we'll pick it back up after lunch. And for all of you out there watching, I see a lot of you chiming in and watching. Thanks for continuing to support NYSCATE's great events. And we got another almost 24 full hours here, more than full hours. Meet people, meet great solution providers like the two we have here, and just to take in the sights and scenes of NYSCATE 25. So have a great day, everybody. And we're continuing on with our next guest coming up very shortly.